Ladies and gentlemen, we're only a few months into the year, but another mobile game has just announced that they will be sunsetting or shutting the game down. Now, obviously, the first game this year is Apex Mobile. We've already talked about it way too much, so we're not even going to mention that in today's video, but it is interesting because how this game is shutting down is kind of similar to Apex Mobile. They obviously copied a lot of cues and a lot of wording from Apex Mobile as to how their game is going to be ceasing operations, but I will have to say this one is very, very different. There are a lot of strings attached to this game closing, and it is not at all similar to how Apex Mobile shut down. And the game in question is Hyperfront. Now, if you have heard of Hyperfront or you think that's really familiar, but I don't think I've ever played the game, well, that's for a good reason. It's because last year Hyperfront made the rounds on social media, on YouTube, on Twitter, because the game is a Valorant clone. It is literally a one-to-one copy of Valorant with the character abilities, with the maps, with the guns, with the modes. The only thing the developers changed were the basically graphics of it, the skin designs, the characters, but everything else is the same to Valorant down to a T. Now, the developer of this game, Hyperfront, is NetEase. Now, you guys probably know NetEase because they're also developing a Warzone mobile clone right now, Project Bloodstrike. I've made a few videos on that game so far. It's actually a pretty good game, all things considered. But yeah, around a year ago, maybe like half a year ago, Hyperfront, I think they launched on iOS in some closed beta regions, and the game stayed like that forever. The game never globally launched. The game never went public, so that's probably why you guys remember the game, but you probably haven't actually experienced it yourself. And as a side note, I tried to download the game to get gameplay for this video, background gameplay, or just to see how it played just a few days before the game actually shutting down, and I couldn't. Actually, I wanted to add one caveat to that. I was actually able to download the game and the gameplay you guys have been seeing, and we'll see the stuff I captured today, but it was super hard to find a download that was working. But I will leave the one that I used down below in the description if you guys want to play the game for the last like 5 days of its existence. But I will let you know it is a bot filled. I didn't run into a single person, but just thought I'd let you know. Now, this right here is what Hyperfront tweeted. They also have this in game. If you actually have the game installed, you can go ahead and open up the game and look at this before you hop into any matches or modes. But Hyperfront released this saying, with a heavy heart, we regret to inform you that we will be sunsetting Hyperfront, and its servers will cease operations at 8 a.m. UTC on April 10th. So at least from yesterday when they announced this information, that was a week. They're giving players a week heads up, which at least Apex Mobile, they gave players like a 3-month notice, but Hyperfront, it was a much smaller game, and so a week's head notice is really small, but I guess it also makes sense. They go on to say you will still be able to continue playing this game and access existing game content up to the moment that this server is shut down. In order to protect player privacy and security, your account data, character data, and other information will be deleted after the server is no longer in operation, unless otherwise specified by local laws and regulations, which is a really weird thing to chuck in. We are proud of the community formed around Hyperfront. Thank you for all of your support and love during this time, and we apologize for the disappointment that this announcement might cause. The figures of every Astral who fought in Hyperfront will live on in our hearts, and we'll always remember the good times we spent together. May the light of star energy continue to illuminate our path. Now listen, I'm not laughing at the game shutting down. I'm just kind of chuckling because, one, this announcement is eerily similar to Apex Mobile. They used the phrase sunsetting, which before Apex Mobile had ever announced their game was shutting down, I don't think I'd ever heard the term sunsetting a game. So they kind of just tried to copy and paste what Apex Mobile did because they're like, hey, that didn't get received too poorly by the community. But also the community formed around Hyperfront, the game's a copycat. It's not like Hyperfront came out with something new and innovative and people flocked to the game because they just loved the idea of it. No, people played Hyperfront because they're tired of waiting for Valorant Mobile and they just wanted to play something. The game, albeit wasn't a bad game. NetEase is very infamous for just stealing games. They've stolen Fortnite before. It was called Fortcraft, I believe, like way back in the day. They released Rules of Survival, which is infamously one of the worst ran games in gaming history, mobile gaming history at least. They're currently copying Warzone Mobile and now Valorant Mobile. That's 4 games on their roster over the last few years that have all been copycats, and 2 of them have been shut down. Rules of Survival and Fortcraft, and well, not Hyperfront, so I guess 3 of them are shut down. And Warzone Mobile, that Project Bloodstrike clone, I can only imagine how much longer that has until Activision goes out of its way and decides to shut down. Or maybe it can't. It's a copy of Warzone, but I don't think it's too much of a copy to where they might be able to close it down. I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe they'll be having their 4th mobile game shut down in a few years. But really, that's not the big takeaway from this. Yes, we lose a mobile game, but really, it was a small game, only released in a few regions, and it was a copy of Valorant Mobile. But the big thing to take away from this is Riot is the reason this game is shutting down. Hyperfront didn't just decide, hey, we're going to close operations. It was fun while it lasted. No, what happens when a game like this comes out, when a game that is obviously and blatantly a direct copycat of another game, is the original publisher of the game that was copied, they can actually go to Hyperfront. So Riot Games, in this instance, they can go to NetEase and say, hey guys, you obviously stole our games. If you don't want to enter a legal battle and you don't want to deal with lawsuits and lawyer fees, then we're just going to go ahead and offer you a cease and desist. So if you shut your game down within X amount of days, then there's going to be no problem. We'll shake hands, we're going to separate ways, and that's it. So basically, Hyperfront was given a cease and desist by Riot Games. I don't know if this is actually confirmed, but a lot of people in the community have been using this rumor, and it makes a ton of sense as to why Hyperfront would just shut down all of a sudden. So Riot Games went to NetEase, they gave them a cease and desist, and the game is shutting down. Now, why is giving them a cease and desist a big deal? Well, because that could only mean one thing, that Valorant Mobile is getting much, much closer. Hyperfront has existed for over a year and a half. But Valorant Mobile has already been in development for the last year and a half. So the entire time Hyperfront was out and able to be played as a mobile game, Valorant Mobile was being developed the entire time. So at any point in the last year and a half, Riot Games would have had a very good basis to go and offer them this cease and desist, or I guess give them the cease and desist, but they didn't. So it must have meant over the last year and a half, they knew, there's no reason, we're not even close to being able to give players the real Valorant Mobile experience. But there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who played this game. I'm not sure how many people were playing it to the point of it getting shut down, but if they're basically removing the Valorant Mobile clone, it can only kind of draw to one conclusion, that the actual Valorant Mobile beta must be coming much sooner than we thought. Now, at the moment, there is no confirmed beta release date, anything. The only news we have from Riot Games themselves on Valorant Mobile is the fact that things are taking longer than expected. However, there are some industry insiders or some Valorant Mobile leak accounts that have been pretty accurate over the last few months, covering the game's release and betas and stuff like that. And so the current estimate for betas is either the end of this year or early 2024, either for some regional betas or for some closed global beta tests. And that makes sense. With Valorant Mobile betas coming within just a few short months, they would want to make sure that there's no competitors on the market. There's nothing else distracting them from actually having all of the people in the community just download Valorant Mobile. Because if Hyperfront still existed while Valorant Mobile was out, let's say Valorant Mobile ran terribly on some lower end devices, people could have gone and installed Hyperfront Lite, which I believe they did have a light version of the game, and then they could have played their knockoff, and Riot would be losing money, and that's not what you want to happen. So although this doesn't confirm without a doubt that Valorant Mobile is coming soon, I do think it gives a lot of good possibility to the fact that Riot is getting prepared to launch Valorant Mobile either in once again some betas or some regional tests. So it's super sad that this has happened. Obviously, losing a mobile game is never good, but I have to imagine it was only a matter of time. NetEase, they know what they're doing. They've been through this before. Their games have been shut down, so they kind of just develop games. They get the money out of it while they can, and they're like, okay, yeah, we'll shut down, no worries. And so while the game did shut down, it's once again nothing nearly similar to Apex Mobile, so I wouldn't even consider this a shutdown. This was just a matter of time. But as always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to absolutely obliterate that like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay updated on all things mobile gaming news. It seems like things are going to be heating up for the second half of 2023, so I'm super excited to see what comes of it. As always, been about DuckyTheGamer. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.